Revolution, Hopes and Prospects is a book authored by Professor Adam Habib. The book attempts to deconstruct the political transition in South Africa after 1994, tracking the country's policies, its highs, its lows, and makes for an interesting read, and that's a fact. Professor Adam Habib is the Vice-Chancellor of the University of the Witwatersrand. You have seen him all over the news lately. Wits, of course, being all over the news for not tolerating sexual harassment. He's in studio with me, and I think before we talk about the book, it's important to talk about what's been happening at Wits. Prof, firstly, good morning, good to have you. Congrats on the book. Talk to us about your moves at Wits and what's happening with the lecturers.
Well, there's no doubt that the young women particularly have been harassed at Wits, and it's been going on for a while. There's been some rumors. We've tried to investigate it. We've never taken it very far. And then what happened early on in the year is the newspapers blew it. And that forced the institution to start investigating it much more robustly. We found out that there was substantial evidence that people had sexually harassed young students. And so it's important that we act. So what we've done is we've had 3 hearings. There are 4 people charged. There are 3 hearings. The disciplinary hearings of all 3 pronounced that the individuals were guilty and recommended dismissal. And within 8 hours, we dismissed all 3 individuals. Just yesterday, we had 1 verdict in the morning. By 12 o'clock, I had already made the decision. And we're acting very rigorously, very quickly, very robustly to send a very strong signal that sexual harassment will not be tolerated. This is a free space. You can't provide higher education if this is not a free space for young women and men. And so we're going to send a very powerful signal around this.
Good. Well, we're glad for the example that you're setting. Let's now talk about the book, because this is what it's all about. What inspired this?
Well, you know, there's 2 parts of my life. One is as an academic for a long period of my life. Most of my professional life, I've been an academic, but I've also been somebody who's been politically engaged. Yeah. I engage in political commentary. I write in the newspapers. And what I've often been worried about is a kind of 2 things. One is a dialogue of the deaf, where business, labor, and the state talk past each other, but they don't talk to each other. And the second is that often much of the work in the academy and much of the work in the newspapers don't talk to each other. They are kind of completely separate. And for me, what I wanted to do was bridge the divide. So I thought I had a sabbatical. I went to Oxford. I dragged my family along, miserable weather, and wrote this book that effectively tries to do it as readable as possible, yet still retaining some of the theoretical stuff that is necessary for the academy.
It's a very loaded title, and I'd love to know your thinking behind it. The South Africa Suspended Revolution. What do you mean by this?
Well, we had this great vision of where we wanted to be, and we had this plan. And what happened is we got stalled. If you speak to most people within the ANC, outside the ANC, ordinary people, and they'll say to you, we've never come close to achieving the aspirations we want. We've made progress, but we haven't achieved what we want. And I was looking for a title. And Ashili Mbembe, who's a kind of humanities scholar at Wits University, had written something, and he said, it's like we're in between the intractable present and the future. We're stuck in somewhere in between. We haven't reached our goal, but we've moved from where we were. And that's what captures it. It's got suspended somehow. And that's why we grappled to the title.
The suspended. I mean, you say in the book that when the government took over to create a post-apartheid state, public policy between the late apartheid and the post-apartheid era led to similar results. This is a very ironic outcome.
That's right. And you know, one of the big problems about South Africa is that we think that our problem is a problem of individuals. So we think it was either Thabo Mbeki or Jacob Zuma, and they are to blame for what had happened. Now, in part, individual elites are accountable. But it's also got to do with what position they found themselves in, and how that position constrained what their actions were, and what should they have done in this context. My problem, if you like, in that book, and that's the message of the book, is that one of the biggest problems is we've forgotten about an inclusive democracy. We can never create the democracy we want so long as 5 million young people are unemployed, not in education, and standing in the street corners, because they're angry, and they increasingly are saying enough is enough. And unless we find a home for them in this democracy that you and I appreciate, unless we find a home for them, they're going to burn the ship down. And that's the central message that I think all of us, the economic elites, the political elites, the middle classes need to understand.
Yeah. Adam Habib, I want to continue the conversation. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I think that this is a definite read for many out there. And I think you've given us the message of what people can expect when they do read this book. Bookstores around the country?
It's all over the place.
It's all over the place. All right. Adam Habib, thank you for joining us. This is the book. Go out there, get it, if this is what you would like to read. Let's take a break.